As in Utah, when I was a boy, everybody knew what a downwinder was. We were the anti-nuclear capital of the world. I was an autistic kid. My father was a drafted United States Marine, an incredible man. I come from an incredible family. My uncle stood on Omaha Beach on D-Day. I grew up on a huge ranch out by the lake. He was a beautiful, incredible person. He was at Pendleton, combat ready, and they were human guinea pig. They were marched into the trenches in Nevada. They're called atomic veterans. He nearly died at the blast. Between 1951 and 1968, we had 300 open-air tests. Well, as different scientists started to write about this, Wallace Stegner was at the University of Utah at the time. I got to know him. Edward Abbey was hanging around there. I got to know him. I got to know all these environmentalists, and I was an environmentalist, and it was a passionate, intense subject matter there.
All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck.
Power complex anthem.
They'll be calling you a radical. Bloomgate, 311, whatever you want to call it. I call it Pacific genocide, whatever. It's fucking giant conspiratorial across all demographics. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck.
Fear. Would never work for you.
Calling you a radical. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. Bloomgate, 311, whatever you want to call it. I call it Pacific genocide, whatever. It's fucking giant conspiratorial across all demographics. They'll be calling you a radical. May God have mercy on all of your souls.
Nuclear power was evolving. We were promised, oh, this can't happen. It will never happen. We cannot have a meltdown.
Well, I hope you're all hiding under your table with your lipstick on and your high heels with Ted Nugent. And you got your dogma snuggies on, you're having some dogma burgers, and you're telling them you're going to kick all the Muslims out, and you're going to flip your hair over, and you're going to get them with your gun. So everybody's shivering their timbers, just like Ted Nugent does, hides under his mama's table and puts his lipstick on while he's pissing his shit in his pants to get out of the war. He said that Ted Nugent says, if I'd have won, I ought to kill the wall. That pussy couldn't kill anybody. Fox News called Obama pussy. Fox News the biggest pussies that ever walked. America, home of the cowards. Couple people go crazy rogue down in San Bernardino, and 350 million people in this country, and they're hiding under their tables, shiver their timbers. America, home of the cowards. It's so outrageous. Johnny, got your gun. That'll save you. Maybe if you got some silver and gold, Alex Jones is going to sell you a freaking bunker. Yeah. Let's get in our bunker, move to the Great White North, and lick our gold bars. That's going to save me. As soon as you go down that road, you're already fucking dead and don't know it. And to the NSA and the CIA, if they listen, which after being at the Snowden event, I imagine, hopefully you can fucking learn something. Guess what? You fuckers get cancer too. So we go along with this. I'm going to talk about Snowden, tomato, nuclear all day, and the complex. And if I wasn't banned from the Utah media before, which I was, what am I now? Oh, did I get into it with him? I have proof now. I got him now. I have proof that the CIA has paid the Mormon Church, has paid KSL, which the Mormon Church owns Bonneville Communications, which owns KSL, which Sinclair owns KUTV. Yeah, that's Earl Holding, Dick Cheney's best friend. I have proof now that they're writing all their articles, scripting everything they say, and they're pushing the fear complex 100%. So I'm at the Snowden of, well, I got connections, because it's the Eccles Foundation, I'm an economist, remember, Mariner? I know the whole I taught at the #1 school of business. I have lots of connections. So I backed the big dumbasses up there. So an activist bought me a ticket. I got up early and, I did a YouTube video. And I'll tell you what, after listening to Snowden talk, he talks exactly like I talk. He's one of us. I mean exactly. I mean, it's amazing how much he sounds like the spew that I kick out, which is reality. He talks about King George. He talked about the American Revolution. He talked about the freaking sheep going along. He talked about everything that I speak about, the pyramid, and he got into it. Now, at first I did a knee-jerk video as I came out because I was disappointed because the per se, the question format was very different. I mean, Doug Provisio, Fresh Air, he works for Coke Butter, PBS. He's great, by the way. I like him. He's a good storyteller. And he talks like this all high. But those guys, those pacifists, are very good. Now, he's not passive-aggressive. He's great. He's a beautiful storyteller. He's one of my favorite Utahns. I listen to him all the time. I love his fucking... But then, what happens is the rest of them are passive-aggressive. Like Dak Wright, the Mormon Church, and they all the time got their hairspray and they're talking, oh, hi, brother. They're trying to steal your wallet or kill you. And so the cowards, they push the fear complex. So he's trying to steer Snowden in the event. Snowden will have none of it. None of it. That's how these pacifists do. They try to take the conversation subtly. He's like me. He'd cut him off so fucking fast. And then he would go down these rabbit holes, and you could see he'd be heavily watched. He's being heavily watched. My guess there's people right in the room with him. And he would turn his head down, but did he go off? Did he speak my language? So I know for a fact he got my question. So what I did is, I did a YouTube video. He talked a lot about social media and how that's how he can communicate. He says, look, we have social media. I can watch any social media. And he says, I'm connected all day, every day. I'm the first generation that does it. Everybody can watch anything you do all over the world. Even in China, it's bootleg. He talked about the repression in Russia very briefly. Very, very briefly. Hold on. He talked about the repression in China. He talked about repression around the world. But then he talked about the repression in the United States. Sorry about the noise. I don't know what the hell they're doing in here. So he talked about the repression in the United States, big time. And he got into it. And he went off. He says it like this. He says, we don't need the masses. Why would we ever need the masses? He talked about, because Doug tried to steer him. And the only time Doug got him really under his skin, because, Doug has to spew the far-right radical, even a little bit of in a passive-aggressive way. He's in Utah because the Mormon Church has men bots. They're not Christians. They have nothing to do with Christians. Even evangelicals. You got, a couple 100 million people in the United States call them Christians. None of them are Christians. The opposite of Christian. Let's talk. Jesus Christ, that brown-skinned, brown-eyed, poor Jew. That fucking radical. That hardcore radical socialist. Feed the poor. He'll be afflicted. Throw the usury money changers, the free marketers, out of the fucking temple. They're exactly the opposite. They call themselves Christian nation. This nation is the opposite of Christianity. It's evil. This is the fucking most evil nation in fucking human history has evolved into. Now, granted, there's still some good elements, and there's lots of good people. But like he said, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He talked about the American Revolution. He says, look, let's remember, even when they fought the Revolution, he says there were 70% of the population was against the war. He says if King George, he talked a lot about it, he says if King George had surveillance NSA, that would have never happened. He says those early patriots, Sam Adams and the boys, Paul Revere, they'd have been locked up and thrown away. He says they've done worse than they did to me. Which is true. He says only 3%. He says we don't need the sheep. We don't need the masses. He says let's get real. 35% of the world population doesn't believe that the earth rotates around the sun rotates around the earth. I mean, it's true. And why should everybody have to be involved? People want to go to work. They want to raise their family. They want to do their things, because we always rely on leaders. Somebody's got to have some integrity, right? The politicians are all for sale. None of them stand up. None of them. And if they do, they're all co-ops. They're threatened with their lives or whatever. And then, so we rely on church leaders, right? Every one of them took the money. Not my words, Snowden's words. Karl Rove says it. Karl Rove wrote an internal memo before 2000, right before the election. He got run right out of Weber State University right here. He debated right here at Weber State when I was there, when I was young. He was BYU law. He got run out of the state because we were still open-minded. We were still traditional, the old open-minded Mormons here, environmentalists, hardcore. They protected the freaking people in their environment, hardcore radicals. They didn't fuck him. So they sent that small penis fucking car with a small C piece of dog shit, one of the greatest treasons of rats who ever walked the face of the earth, who should be fucking hung for fucking treason. They sent that fucker packing. These are treasonous fucking acts. Dick Cheney, these are treasonous acts. He stole the election of 2000. He writes in his internal memo, he writes that they should, if you want to steal the elections, you want to get the elections, you have to go to the evangelicals, the Mormons, and you have to buy them. That's what he said. Now we know they did. Joel Osteen, the prosperity gospel, was created by the CIA. They were paid. Joel Osteen was paid to push it. Rick Warner was paid to push it. What's her name in St. Louis was paid to push it. Now we know for a fact the Mormon Church was paid. Now the Mormon Church is bleeding members hardcore. Everybody's fleeing the Mormon Church because they realize they're Mormon Inc. And it's been disclosed. There's people inside the Mormon hierarchy that are just cutting stuff loose on the internet every other day. They have nonprofit. They're violating every rule there is to have nonprofit. So is Osteen. So is all of them. You know, hijack the whole thing. So that's what they just pound fear. Got the skyrocketing. Diving, you know, the military complex. And you can't blame the cops. I mean, there's some bad cops. I mean, because they just get fed. You know, if you're a police officer and they come to you and say, hey, we're doubling your salary, we're going to triple your salary, we're going to quadruple your salary, what are you going to do? Say no? You know, they're just like, yeah, so they're being empowered. Then they feed them all this military weaponry. If you watch the documentary Peace Officer here in Ogden, Utah, which is Dub Lawrence, the youngest elected sheriff in Utah's history, that was his son-in-law that was killed, who dives into this. And then they try to hide it. Says, oh, we don't have military hardware because this kid that made the documentary, they thought he was a goody two-shoe Mormon, and they think they're all on their side. He wasn't on their side. And he talks their language. They'll talk like this. So they have a code here in the United States. Fox News knows the code. The Mormons know the code. They all talk like this. Oh, hi. Oh, isn't it terrible what that Obama's doing? Oh, it's horrible, yeah. You know, in public, behind doors, oh, no, they're intense. You know, they're full of hate. And they all wear hairspray. They dress exactly the same. They have their fake rock stucco mansions that they're over-leveraged on. They drive the same cars. They talk the same lingo, and it's the club. And everybody's joined the club. Now I'll talk like this. Every single Republican politician talks exactly that. I mean, look at Lindsey Graham. I'll tell you right now, if Lindsey Graham is not full-blown out gay, I'm an astronaut. I will bet anybody $10 billion he is full-blown out gay. Just like, I mean, Dennis Hasser, the far righter, remember him? Oh, all he was doing was molesting freaking boys. You know, Lord Brown from BP, molesting young boys. I mean, these guys are overcompensation from hell. I mean, watch Lindsey Graham, watch his mannerism, whatever. He's overcompensating because he doesn't want to come out. I mean, which is very typical in the Mormon community. Very typical. Ask Bruce Bastion. Who's he? I mean, it's very typical. It's overcompensation. You know, I used to go on these rants, this pretty cowboy rant around here. I believe that not all of them, you know, I don't think Ted Nugent's freaking overcompensating for that. Ted Nugent's overcompensating for a small penis. And how do I know that? Have I ever seen his penis? No. But I was with the girl that he was married to for a while. That's right, she's from here. I was with her when she met him. I mean, that girl, wow, hardcore. She was a mess. He's a mess. So, you know, I'm in the community. Here's the difference between me and YouTube bloggers and bloggers. You see how hard I go. You see how much strength I have. You see how much energy I go. I go 7 days a week, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. I've done it since I was a kid. I'm very, very embedded in the community. I know everybody. Anybody, I mean, you go around this town, anybody, you know, like when I'm up there, it's amazing who I know, what I know, because I'm involved, I'm active in my community, in the street. Not on the internet. I do that too. But I'm in the street, and so I communicate with people. I know people, lots of people. And so that's how I find out things. That's how I have connections. That's the only way you're ever going to get to the root of anything. That's the only way you're ever going to know anything, is having conversations with them. You know, a guy told me a long, long time ago, he says, Kevin, you talk like a guy in the bar having a beer. Yeah. Isn't that how we're all supposed to talk? Don't we all talk normal. We're not supposed to talk fake. We're not supposed to wear hairspray. We're not supposed to get up in the morning, put the new wig, and put this clown suit on and fucking talk like that. I just talk like I was normally born to talk. You know, it's amazing. So, back to Snowden. So, he got into it, and he talked about how he got such high clearance. He alluded to his mom and dad, which he didn't outright say, but they were obviously CIA, which he all but said that. So he says he just assumed he would. So he said he bought into the bullshit narrative of the war machine. He says it was naive, and he bought into the war narrative, and his friends are saying, are you crazy? This war ain't on freaking trial. He says he bought into it. So he joined. Well, he has the connections. Of course he says. So he was going to become an Army Ranger. Calls it his Army summer camp. So he's jumping out of a plane, he broke his legs. That was over. So this kid's brilliant, by the way. I mean, he's a fucking genius. Really a genius. I thought, because I cannot do it. Was his mind autistic? There's no doubt in my mind he can suck up information out of it, because he has the same mannerisms as I do. As adults overcome this, whatever the skill is, our communication, we go and then we break off. He does exactly the same thing. I know it because I've been around so long, and like I said, that's how I go. That's how we do it, because our mind is going so strong, and we have so much in there. That's him. He wouldn't let Doug get in a word edgewise. Doug tried to take he wouldn't let him. He just cut his ass off right here, right now, every time. So he says, so I joined the CIA. He says, I was the first generation that was on the internet my whole life. He says, I grew up a freaking techie. He says, I grew up on the internet, connected all the time. So this brilliant kid who had these IT skills, who they looked into his background. Oh, his parents are CIA. He joined the Army. He's buying into our narrative. And he says that. They like me because I bought into a lot of the other NSA. And he says, the low-level NSA, he says, they're out there, they're not bad people. They've just all bought into the narrative. That the ends, you know, that this meets, the means meets the ends. He says, I bought into it at first. And he says, but I was so good at what I did because they need techies and whatever, and, you know, he rose up. He says, then I got the second level in the NSA CIA pyramid. Then I started to see more stuff that then, he says, I didn't know. And he says, this is what did it. He says, I had no idea. There's another teeny top level surveillance that nobody gets. He got it. He says, so right from the get, first thing he sees come across his desk. Stuff that nobody sees, not even the NSA sees, nobody. And he went, oh my God, these lying motherfuckers. This is nothing but a pyramid scheme. The entire NSA sees it as nothing but a pyramid scheme run by the elites of the world to control the fucking masses, to keep them impoverished and keep them down. This has nothing to do with fighting terrorism, nothing. He says, my light went on, and he went, oh my God, no. He says, I had no idea this fucking even top of this pyramid clearance existed. There it is. He says, and you can see he's evolving over there. You can see he's with the Sam Adams group. I mean, I'll bet that he's with it. Now, how did I know he got my question? I'll tell you how I know. I sent my question to the foundation, and, you know, this was scripted and tried. But, so they sent the questions to him, and so I have a connection up there. You know, yeah, I got your question, Kevin. Yeah, but did Doug get it? Yeah, he's reviewing it all. You know, he's still going over everything right now, putting it together. What about Edward? What about Smith? Did he get it? Yeah, he's been given everything in advance. He's prepared, and I'll tell you how I know about it. So we get partway through the thing, and he's just going. I mean, he's rambling. I mean, he won't let it get an edge in word. I mean, he's just going. He's got so much penned up and so much to say. So he gets to a piece, and he starts to talk about the activists. Well, I sent him a link in my question to the Guardian article, which he said that not only they going after activists, they have a NSA and CIA have a program to go after grassroots activists and to squash them down and try to kill them. And I forwarded him the link that it was released to the Guardian. He puts the very article that I put up on his screen. And Doug even says, I didn't even know we were going to, be able to do this. And he puts it up. And there's the article that I sent. And he talked about it. And he says, he talked about it. And he says, look, and he talked about the press. Then went on and ran about the press. And he says, it's not my duty. One of my greatest was this. says that I did all this and threw away my life and nobody would give me a platform. He says, and I really thought that was probably going to happen. This would go nowhere. But he got a platform in the inception. You know, Greenwald gave him the platform, everybody. And people need to know, you know, when he got forced down, which was in Austria, I believe, he had no intention of going to Russia. None. It shows the globalist regime with all the power. None. He's done. Unless everything changes anything, because that one incident. He's on the plane. He's headed to Bolivia, right? Same with Julian. Julian didn't do anything illegal. Nothing. Now, Snoud, you can argue he broke the law big time, or, you know, that maybe the law was wrong, Rosa Parks. You know, same with young Manny. You know, they broke the law, but maybe the law was wrong. But Assange and everybody, and he talked about that. He says they knew they had nothing on the guy, so they searched the globe over and over and over until they could find one of their elitist friends to freaking nab him, which the same old players. Same old players are the same old players they were in Nazi, which has all been freaking right. Sweden, you know. Well, I don't think Italy's in on it anymore. They were. That's who freaking joined in with Hitler. That's who freaking threw in with him. So he gets to that place, and he's like, and he's evolving. But he only made one comment about Russia negatively, and you can see, I mean, he lived there. So the plane is forced down, they're surrounded. He had no options. He had no options. The plane was going. Remember, he held up in the Moscow airport? Putin's on him. And remember, Putin cut the deal because, come on, let's get real. Putin is the club. The top of the pyramid is Putin. He's him and his lover. His lover, who is the Queen of England. Vladimir Putin. And, you know, he's fighting back on... There's an inbred war going just like there was in 1914 among these elite royals. They've got it all back just like there was. All roads lead to Vienna, don't they? Don't all roads lead to Vienna again? Marie Antoinette. That's where the plane went down. I mean, my friend over there says, don't kid yourself. Austria is so progressive and so great, and they are. That's magnificent people over there. But the rich, wealthy oligarchs that fucking run the world, Hitler's puppet masters, they're still in Vienna. They're still there. The reason the IAEA is there. So they forced the plane down. He can't go. So he's in Russia. So he says, you know, in Russia, they're very repressive to certain groups of people. And there's certain groups of people that can't even say anything, blah, 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 blah. He's talking about, you know, Putin's new war on homosexuality. And then he talks about the repression, but then he goes off on the United States. How repressive, how controlled. And then he really dives into San Bernardino in Paris, and he dove into them. He was ready, full-fledged, because there's been statements made that he caused that. He says, I can prove to you that the whole NSA and the whole CIA are not there to protect you, are not there to even look for terrorists. They're not there to look for terrorists. He talked about even bin Laden in his cell phone. He says, I can prove to you that's not what they do. They're there 100% for the elites of the world to control the masses and repress. That's all they are. He talked about the Data Collection Center, the repository in Utah, which that's the name of it. He gave the real name. It's the Data Collection Repository in Utah. He talked a lot about that. He says it's there to collect data on every single person on Earth. And he talked how they do it. He says, you know, their best tool is Skype. You know, but they have, he says they can get you any way they want. He says bank records, freaking medical, and he went in, they got you. He says they got everything they know about you. And he says the low-level NSAs have gone along because they think they bought into the fear complex. He says, I can prove it to you. He says in Paris, they did not have unencrypted phones. They were using social media all over. Same in San Bernardino. He says they were posting on Facebook, sworn allegiance, blah, blah, blah. He says it proves they don't even watch for terrorism. 9/11 proves they don't even watch for terrorism. Those guys had carte blanche going across the United States. I actually ran into those guys, and people used to say I was crazy. After it happened, I realized that in Wendover I ran into them. Now we know they came that route, because, I mean, they were so stuck out like a sore fan, they were pricks. Did Bush know they were going to do it? I think that's undoubtable that the Bush administration knew what was going at play. The Saudis were flown out. You know, so he says it proves that they don't. That's not what they're there for. And he went off and off and on. And they talked, the only answer, he talked the American Revolution over and over and over and over. And he talked, we don't need masses. We need the few. And he says, you know, we need corporate leaders to fight back. He says, we need technology leaders. He says, we need technology company CEOs and company presidents of technology to quit going online with these guys, quit letting them go up and try to stay ahead, which we know, and I can prove to you what he's talking about. He's talking about one of Marie Antoinette, who's become the greatest puppet. Uncle Tom ever. I mean, if they got him in line, don't they? Well, why? How did they not get you in line? They come to your Pussy Riot. You know, the only people they don't get in line is see what happens to them. They tried to buy out Pat fucking Tillman. Well, we see. You got two options. You play with this if you get any real traction, or you fucking die. That's a tough gig. I mean, why should these people have to live on their life? Well, Jefferson don't have to live his life. He should have his life. Now, did he break the law? And he says, well, I want to stand trial. He says, I want to come home, and I'm willing to go to prison. He said it over and over. I'm willing to go to prison. I'm willing to stand trial, but I need a fair and open trial. He says, they've co-opted everything toward the Espionage Act where I don't get a fair and open trial. They can handpick and stack the deck against me in the evidence. And they'll give me, and so Doug asked him, well, what's the reason? He says, I'm still waiting for the government to get back to me. Now, I had a long conversation with Ben, his attorney, which he's great. He was very friendly, had his kids there, you know, let's go to Park City, have some fun, blah, blah. Very friendly, nice guy. Really, I had a long conversation. He was great. You know, and I have a new respect for Snowden because of his mind. His lingo, oh boy, does the dude get it. He knows it's freaking colonialism. He knows it's run out of the Queen. He knows it's the same players. He knows that we are colonized by the Queen. There's a simple answer to this. You know, and I talk about it all the time, terrorists, but there's another simple answer. Now, hear me out on this. If you got people inside the NSA like him, inside the CIA that know they've been had, they get to the level and they realize they've been had. You got people inside the military, hierarchy of the United States military that have been had. And don't get me wrong, they're not all bad. I mean, look at Cartwright. Cartwright is the chief of staff of the United States Marines. The program that Obama was secretly killing Iranian so-called nuclear scientists and their whole families with Netanyahu, that whistleblower came forward and exposed that whole fucking thing. And they're like, we're hammering this guy. We're going to get him worse than Manning, blah, 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 blah. We're going to get this whistleblower. And this is Barack Obama, who said he was going to be the most transparent, the most protective whistleblower president ever. When he's been everything he said, he's the complete opposite of what he said. He's the biggest failure of a president in the United States history. And it's very sad because he had us all. Who blew the whistle? He finally comes forward, Cartwright, the 5-star Marine. You know, Holder stands down. Of course he stands down, but he always stands down. The United States Justice Department always stands down. Not my words, the head of the FBI here in Utah's words, when they busted Shurtleff and Swallow, the two attorney generals. She says they won't do anything. The Justice Department yeah, I can prove this. The United States Justice Department, look at it. So any thievery, robbery, and you know, they busted a bunch of cases in the last year, and every single one of them, let's make a deal. And every single one of them is the same settlement. You pay back 5% on the dollar you steal. So you steal, you know, $100 billion, you pay back $5 billion. That's not a deterrent to crime. That's an incentive to crime. That tells them, well, worst thing that can happen to us. Go jail, no nothing. They don't do anything. They're part of the problem. The judicial is part of the problem. Now, you know, again, John Hurley told me this, and John Hurley's a lion. You know, go after him. The lion, the National Press Corps, the old man. Came to hear me speak at the inauguration of the Million Mile speech. Talk to me. Kevin, I grew up in Mississippi when I was a boy. My daddy said, you beware of men in white hoods and white capes. But after being here for decades and decades, you know, reporting on the United States Supreme Court, he says, you beware of men in black robes with gold trim. It's true. You know, the American Revolution would have never happened with the fear, but they weren't afraid. They weren't afraid. This country's afraid of their own shadow. Now, it took a long time, and how do they get you afraid? We know factually, as an economist, I know this factually, it's been well documented. The poorer you get, the harder you work, the longer you work, the stressed out, the more freaking stressed out, the more afraid you will become. Self-confidence comes from freedom. Freedom to read, freedom to have time to explore, freedom to be part of your community, have enough economic strength and not overwork, freedom to be part of your community. That builds confidence in people. Overworked, bad food builds fear. We're only humans. We are only human beings. And they're not superhumans. They're not these incredible, created superhuman things. We've just fed them. So it was 34 years ago today the madness started. John Lennon was killed. That was the night my oldest daughter was conceived. You know, I'll never forget it. I will never forget it. I knew right then. Now let's talk about it. He said he was more famous than God. He didn't say he was more important than God. He was moving culture. Now, he was a prick. Do not get me wrong. You know, his own son says when he died, he didn't know whether to jump up and down or cry. So, I mean, but he had control of culture. Most famous man in the world. Bar none. Bar none. They knew that. Do I believe they whacked him? Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah, I believe they whacked him. So, me and Eric Oppenheim and the Young Wolf, we stood right there. I'll put up the video today where we stood in honor of that horrible, horrible day. That's the day the music stopped. It all stopped, and they went to work. Right when Reagan was elected, they pulled off the dog and pony show on the on the hostage situation, which was all scripted bullshit by Bechtel and their puppet called Reagan. The Bechtel puppet called Reagan. Gave him board of directors, and they played it like a fiddle. You think it's a freaking coincidence. The second he put his hand on the Bible and was sworn in to the White House is the second they released him. Mission accomplished. The globalist rats were set free. Snow knows all this, by the way. Now, will Snow ever dump anymore? Now, he has an insurance policy, and he said it over and over and over and over. He has some really, he calls it, his nuclear options, which I think is really nuclear. I asked him about Fukushima in my things. But let's get real. He's in Russia. He can't speak Fukushima. Putin's one of the biggest. They know the greatest control mechanism on fucking Earth is fucking nuclear that you pay for your own data. Nuclear energy. That's right. They know that. They know it's the biggest power control structure in the world. Ask the Ukraine. They know. Ask Japan. They know. 48 reactors offline for fucking 4 years. No rolling backup. They're not there for nuclear power. They never were there for nuclear power. They're the greatest control mechanisms in the fucking world. Fucking the greatest cash cow in the world. More than gold, more than diamonds. And think about gold. The gold standard. Let's go to the gold standard. The Rothschilds is the gold standard. Gold is very common. Very common. They control the gold mines. These oligarchs, they sell you the gold. Same with the silver. Silver is so common. It's like a dirt clod. Same with diamonds, De Beers. They're the ones. Same with the guns. I think, who do you think's selling you the bullets? And think about this. So gun sales are skyrocketing. So you get afraid. So you go buy your gun, whatever. How's a gun going to protect you from anything? Now, you'll say, well, these terrorists pull this shit like they did in San Bernardino. It happens so fast. I mean, wow. It's not the answer. It's been proven over and over and over it's the answer. They co-op the answer. They co-op the energy. They send it packing towards you. So anytime there's domestic violence, there's anything that goes down, something crazy happens, the first question the dispatcher asks, is there a gun? Duff talked about this, peace officer. I said, the one common denominator with all these horrible freaking deaths, except for Daniel Willard, which is a blatant hardcore murderer, and that dude's going to go down, mark my words. He's going to get recharged at some point. Cause is going to change. There's no statute of limitations on murder. And it's not double jeopardy because he was never tried. He never went to trial. He was never charged. So it's not double jeopardy. He was just tossed out. So the one common denominator, they always have a gun. Matthew Stewart, freaking, here in Utah, I'm talking here in Utah, Dub's immature, maniac acting, freaking lunatic son-in-law, putting a gun to his head. I mean, so when the gun comes in, these guys come full force. These SWAT teams come loaded for bear as soon as that fucking bullet's fired. Did they know Matthew Stewart had a gun? No, but they, as soon as they shot him in the arm, Dub proved it all. It's hee-haw. It's on. And in a situation, everybody who says they have a gun and knows how they'll react in a situation like that because they've been in the shooting range, they don't know. It's been proven over and over and over. That's a heavy, heavy gig. Heavy, heavy gig. It takes freaking men of nerves of steel to hold yourself under pressure when there's freaking bullets flying at you. Ask anybody in a military situation. Very few people are able to handle that. So all these guys got their guns, whatever. I mean, that's hardcore situation. So can they react? I think a few people in the world, again, Ted Nugent should have fucking one of them. He crawls under his fucking mama's table on his fucking lipstick just like he did fucking Vietnam. Oh, I shouldn't piss my pants. I would have killed a lot of people. I want to fight that guy so fucking bad, any place, anywhere. My father was killed. I want people to know my father was killed by the nuclear industry. My uncle who raised me still on Mont Beach on D-Day. My other uncle's still alive as a POW in Nam. Youngest colonel in American history. Air Force. Fighter pilot. So, It's so outrageous to anybody that hears his bullshit rhetoric. You know, all these guys that fucking gung-ho, let's fucking like Trump, like all of them, none of them have ever bled. None of their families have ever bled. None of them. You go to that whole Republican hairspray masquerade party, none of them. You go right down the fucking Fox News, fucking Ted Nugent, fucking Dick Cheney, fucking Donald Rumsfeld, fucking George Bush, fucking Dick Cheney, draft dodger, 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 draft dodger. None of them ever bled. None of their families ever bled. War as hell. The guy is afraid. And now we have sellouts. We have hardcore sellouts like John Kerry because he married freaking Teresa Hines, who, I mean, her husband gets whacked. Yeah, she was married to Hines. Yeah, the Hines ketchup portrait, the senator. Oh, him and Wallstone's playing just boom, all of a sudden at the same time. Let's see, where did she learn it from? Oh, she's from that family down there in South America that had the freaking freely elected president whacked with the CIA. She's so CIA skull and bones, it's unbelievable. What? She was married to Senator Hines, a Republican that was whacked. Now she's married to John Kerry. These are all arranged marriages, all through skull and crossbones, including Bill and Hillary Clinton, including the sexual contact between Yoko and Hillary. That's right. Yoko come out and said, yeah, how would Yoko, the most hated person in the world in the 70s, this is a fact. Yoko Ono was the most hated person in the world. She got blamed for breaking up the Beatles. I mean, the most hated person in the world. It's unarguable. It's undebatable. Now she's the darling of the art community. Think about that. Think about that. How America is full of hate. America is full of America's gone. It's the opposite. It's not free. It's not fucking wealthy. It's not healthy. It's not strong. It's not the home of the brave. It's the home of the cat. Now, it used to be, when we grew up, it was an amazing place. We got to grow up in Good but boom, the music stopped 34 years ago today. And they just played it. It took them a long time. Mission accomplished. It's not going to happen, could happen. They did it. Free market fairy tales, gold guns, God. Bill Clinton, who was the most neoconservative far right, which I didn't used to believe it, but I believe it now that he probably really is the son of Nelson Rockefeller. He's surely not, the story is that his dad was CIA, and his dad was, all blood, and he had women pregnant all over the country, and he just died in that car wreck reaching his arm out right after he had impregnated that freaking chick that nobody knew who was in Arkansas. Bull fucking shit. Jefferson, and then he ends up being a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, the most anti-American school in history. I'm an economist. What's the opposite of anything American? American Hamilton, the great economist. Tariffs. So I think that lunatic, radical freak Trump fucking understands. He's out of his butt. But look, Trump's pandering to his base. I think he works. I think they've co-opted him. I think he's part of it. He's got so much debt. His real net worth is minus hundreds of millions of dollars. People say he's a bit. No, he's not. He's minus, and so they've cut a deal with him, just like they did Obama. Obama was idealistic, naive, and green as grass as he got elected. He didn't realize the shadow government that he was into. He had no idea. So he got full of himself. You watched him. Oh, he spoke beautifully at everything, and, he got full of himself and the energy. I'm the most famous person in the world, which he was. And he got in there, and he got all arrogant. He got all full of himself, whatever, and they schooled that motherfucker, didn't they? Called Steve Chinese jobs. What about you? I'm going to change the world. I'm going to be a transformational president. I said this years ago, you open his memoirs, all it says, all one page, Latin word. That's all it says. That's all it says. He just keeps going and going and going. All it is status quo. Status quo. Because it was already mission accomplished. When they stole the election, Roger Ailes did his PhD right out of freaking, Grubel, the fascism regime, right out of the Nazi freaking plan. Hitler didn't write that plan. That plan was written long ago. Sold as Babylon, evil as hell. They wouldn't go back to the playbook. Freedom fries! Same old bullshit. There's two quintessential freaking hardcore, to the most uneducated person to the smartest person. There's two hardcore, deep emotions in all human beings. Greed and fear. And fear will even trump greed. And they tap into them. They've impoverished their people. They turned their people against each other. They race bait. They religious bait. They whatever. Yeah, you got a couple fucking lunatics in in San Bernardino. You think they represent the fucking how many billion Muslims? No, they were fucking whacked. They got caught and hiding in plain sight. Why weren't they on the list? Why weren't they on the list? Why weren't they being watched? Because they're not there. As Snowden said, they're not there for that. They're not there. They're to control. You know what? There is the concentration of wealth, the greatest redistribution of wealth to the 1% human history has happened since Lennon was killed. Come on. H. Bush, head of the CIA, heavily involved in it. Didn't even win. He did not win 2000. They hijacked the Supreme Court. Leland Roberts' place there, BYU Law. You know, that's how Mike Lee got his job. He's his lead staffer. I mean, they cost everybody. And so everybody wants to be on the winning team, and they want to be in this club. And so Fox News puts out the narrative every morning, which is currency. You know, Els puts out the narrative. These guys put out the narrative. Fox News regurgitates the narrative. The most anti-American thing in the history of this earth is Fox News. Now, he was asked. He says, well, there's plenty of people out there that say, including the ex-NSA head, that you should be hung. He says it in public. They all say it in public over and over and over. And that's when it set him off. He says, really? He says, okay. He says, the ex-head of the NSA, he says, if you got one man sitting on the porch rattling his cane, you got a problem. He says, popular opinion is changing. Then he went off on Hillary. He says, well, Bernie Sanders and Hillary both asked about you in the debate. And they both said you should be tried and sent to prison, but Bernie said that you should be given some good time for the good work that you did and opening people's mind in the debate under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And oh, did he hammer the First Amendment. He had First Amendment the entire time. And Hillary said no, he should be come home, tried, put in prison. Oh, he went off on Hillary. He says, really? Here's Hillary. I don't know that he'd heard that before. I don't know that he knew that she'd been asked. And he says that, two sets of rules. What about her and her emails? Look what she did. And he went off. And so she kept going off on it, and he hammered away at the First Amendment. I mean, hammer. He talked about private versus public being blurred, and then he says it. Directed, I know it was directed right at me and our group, our big group. He understands. He's tapped in. He talks about his internet friends and his internet group and how they're all connected. And he sounded just like the Million Mask group. I'm telling you to a T. He says it. That's when he hammered in. And he talked about how to break this and how this is nothing but globalist elites control that have been slowly sucked up, and they play on people's ignorance, and the NSA has gone along because they don't know any better. And he really hammered in on it, that the First Amendment, how they backdoored it, how these are illegal acts, what they're using inside the NSA. And he says he talked about the secret court. Now, a lot of people don't know about the secret court. I think a lot of our country knows about the secret court. It's been a long time. He rattled off a number, 35,800 and some odd. It's just, it was in 30,000. Like the secret court has been asked for a warrant. How many times have been denied? 11. So then he went off on the numbers they throw out, and they're bullshit numbers that they throw out on how many documents he released. Then he talked about the role of the media, heavily hammered the media. He says, look, it's not my job. He says, it was my job to release this stuff to the media. It's the media's job to decide what the public needs to know and needs to be out, because there was the big talk about the New York Times incident where something got read, and he talked about how that was a bullshit scam, because you could have gone to this guy's Wikipedia page. He says, you go right now, go to and Google NSA. He says, there's tens of thousands of NSA employees that have their resumes right there. So they didn't out anybody. Now, Dick Cheney did. Dick Cheney and Novak, I wonder how Novak held. They outed Valerie Plame Wilson because it didn't meet their narrative, and he busted. And that was a hardcore film. More acts that Cheney broke. Now, they just put Cheney's bust up in the Capitol. One of the greatest treasonous freaking war criminals, one of the greatest criminals in American law history. He broke 100,000 more laws than, Manning and Hassan and Snowden combined. But that's when I knew we were having. When Obama got elected, he says, oh, no, but I knew he was in the club. And he was full of himself, green as grass. Everybody thought he was this brilliant guy. He wasn't. He's a good speech giver, and he's a pretty charismatic dude. And he had a chance to become an incredible person, I think. Look at him now. There's no energy. There's no light left in him. I think he's so medicated right now. You know, he still chain smoking cigarettes. They beat it completely out of him. Completely been beat out of him. He reads right off the teleprompter now. His speeches are, I mean, there's no energy. They've taken, he knows that he can't. The last year, presidents try to write their legacy. He knows he can't. And I'll tell you why he knows he can't. Because it's going to come out historically, and he knows it. That he fell for their shit with Fukushima and BP. Look at BP. Who owns BP? Come on. British Petroleum, who's now bought Shell. There's no antitrust laws in the United States. Who owns it? That's the Rothschilds. That's the Queen. That's their baby. They sealed up public beaches. He could have bombed it shut, and he didn't. He listened to his advisors. So he listened to John Holden, the eugenicist from Cal Berkeley. He listened to him inside the situation on Fukushima, and he bought into it. He was young, and he was green and naive 3 years into office still. He knows now. He knows the nuclear industry had him, and he knows he will go down in history as the man who fucking killed the Pacific Ocean. Is the Pacific Ocean going to die all the way? I hope not. I hope not. I call it Pacific genocide. I've always called it genocide, which the word genocide didn't even evolve until when? 30s in Italy? You know, that's what it's done, and it's already happened. You know, I hypothesis said that in the first days. I get no credit for any of this shit. I don't care. You know, I got into it with the Tribune so hardcore yesterday, you know, with these guys. I'm like, you won't report Fukushima. You won't. We know it hammered right here, and all of us are dying. You report on my friend Marshall having this, you know, feel-good story that he's in remission taking the HIV. He's in the room next to me. But you won't report that he's dead. You know, it's all feel-good come by. Yeah, shit, because they're paid. So you cannot tell me, because all the great work the Tribune did for years. I mean, Judy and I did the work on the Blue Castle. I mean, great work the Tribune did for years. You cannot tell me now. I fed them on a silver platter, and you know how accurate I've been. My sources are developed. My sources are so incredible around the world because, prove it. When I shot a video Sunday morning early on the Saturday night, the fuel rods dropped into the core at Indian Point. I shot a video. On my video, a guy inside that worked right inside Indian Point commented on my video. So there's the contact. That's exactly how San Onofre was shut down. I had the field on Fukushima in those days, in 2011. I got leukemia. It was compelling. Everybody was like, oh, my God, look at this dude. He said it's going to give you leukemia. He's in the bone marrow transplant. I was doing videos on San Onofre. I got a comment on a video. Hey, I'm working inside Santa. I got some stuff for you. What's your email? Starts emailing me. Pictures. Inside San Onofre. They're lying. They're cheating. There's an employee with a whistle. I'll never give up that source. Well, I gave him contact Channel 8 and Channel 10. I sent them to them, too. I had them. So I gave him the contact Channel 8 and Channel 10. He sent it to him. Channel 8 and 10 in San Diego, you know, Lori gives me shit because they went, but they saw it and went, oh, my God. They reported it. That's what broke the back. San Onofre had no intentions of ever shutting down, ever. That's the only reason they shut down there. And then we pushed and pushed and pushed, and one judge in California, District 9, says, yeah, because they wanted to restart. They were cheating on the exchange. The guy told me they were cheating on the exchange. I put it out all over the internet, did YouTube videos. They're cheating on the exchange. You know, and so it was whistleblower from inside. That's how, through my YouTube site. Indian Point, I got a contact now. I got contacts, lots of nuclear reactors on the inside. I got contacts in the NSA on the inside. You wouldn't believe the contacts I used to have inside Japan. Because that's before they hunkered down on Japan. I mean, fucking hundreds and hundreds and thousands and thousands and thousands of incredible emails from Japan. Until they got the safe secret. One day, boom. It was just like, NSA. They cut off all my emails from Japan. I got fucking thousands and thousands of them inside Japan. And Google has Translator. You know, I was using Google Translator, gone. Just like somebody drew a line. And that was September 26, 2012. You know, I got the email that the head of Fukushima 50 was dying. I got the email that they were going underground on the back side. I got the email that they're using the homeless. I got the email that they're fucking hundreds, if not thousands of them are already dead. I got the email that he was going to die of cancer. He died of cancer. And, you know, this person said that it was, he was sending it for his mom. I don't know that. You know, I don't know, but, you know, some of these things got to the point where I could tell who the credible emails were coming from because they'd send me something and then it was accurate. That's how good reporters do. But they've shut down all that. So Obama goes to Harvard on Friday the 13th. That's right, Friday the 13th this year, February, at Harvard. excuse me, at Stanford, the private institution that probably Stanford goes shoots again. And he invites all the IT, and Snow talked about this. He invites them all. Of course, Tim Cook, he shows up. Tim Cook. Now, you think about Apple. Every quarter, all they say is, yeah, we've got the most innovative pipeline we've ever had in the history of the company since Jobs died. They haven't introduced one single product since he died. They just lie. But Jobs hypothesized so forward and build up an amazing, gigantic powerhouse, and they're in the club. Now, I listened to Dr. Shearer speak at Alan Kelly. He's a genius. He's still teaching at USC. That's the old LA Times reporter. That's the guy that was inside the hot room, who knew Tiller personally, reported on Livermore when people gave a shit for decades. He says the NSA completely freaking and the CIA have completely control of Silicon Valley. He's the one that told me about Sheila before she killed her husband or whoever killed her husband in Mexico, and then they made up that story and nothing. Then Four Seasons comes out and says he was never there. He's the one that told me Zuckerberg is a CIA plant. He's the one that told me that she's a CIA plant, and they run Facebook, they run Skype, they run everything, and I think he was going to be a whistleblower. I think, I'm like, Harvard, skull and bones, the guy from inside was breaking ranks. That's my theory. Same place Barack Obama, Barry Antoinette. By the way, his father. But the only thing, he never knew anything his father. His father's did. His mommy had, his mother had daddy issues, so she had sex with that dude. All he did was plant that seed in her. He didn't know anything about it. It was the second creep that freaking abused the shit out of me. You can see Obama's gone. My guess is he's probably heavy medicated. He can't sleep at night because of Fukushima. He knows that it will never be covered up. Everything can be covered up, and society can go on, generations die, and you can rewrite legacies, and you can change history. Not this time, and he knows that. Because Fukushima is never going away. There's no turn-off switch. He knows the Pacific Island. He knows he's pushed it to the brink on the cover-up. Again, I can prove it. The Million Mass March, the inauguration, as we come up with that gig and we do it. So the day before, we're standing there that whole weekend. RT's interviewing John, they're interviewing me. A lot of people are getting interviewed. We get word across the internet that Ernest, Gina McCarthy was head of RadNet. RadNet was crashed. She becomes head of the EPA. So you could see how they were completely co-opted, and MIT took over the entire administration in the second election, 2012. And their whole mantra was to retool the cover-up of Fukushima because obviously it failed. John Holden says, we have the technology underground to clean it up, we have nanotechnology, and it didn't work. So they retooled. So secretly, he sends the head of the fucking Department of Energy, which I actually went in the Department of Energy that day. I have footage and videos because I just happened to be there. So they retooled. He's in Fukushima, Japan. Nobody even knows he's there. They retooled, and he comes back. It's obvious to me that he reported him. There's no shirt enough, so they just, their answer, retooled the cover-up. And they released that article that I broke in the Washington Times, the ex-Washington Post, about the 32 team that I'd already reported. That's how I know my ceases are so accurate. I'd already been showed that. There was a 32 team head by John Holdren and the University of Michigan and MIT, all this, and I run into one of the University of Michigan guys inside the Metropolitan. You can't make this shit up. And I have lots of witnesses that can verify this. One of the team was at the opera at the Metropolitan, and he physically touched Landers Peak. He touched one of the natives on thing, and I can prove it. The Metropolitan has the surveillance tapes. So do I. I have a lot of stuff. So they developed a 32 team on the cover-up to cover up, Fukushima. John Holdren, the eugenicist from Cal Berkeley, is named to lead it, which he was already head of science and technology before it happened. Obama knows they had him. He knows he's going to take the fall because he walks out on March 17th at the Rose Garden. He gives that press conference, and it's backed up all over. We still need safe nuclear. We still need a balanced while he's still spewing the talking point that he was propped up by the nuclear industry. Axelrod out of the nuclear strain. Hillary was running ads against him saying he's all nuclear, he's Joe Nuclear, he's propped up, paid and bought from the nuclear industry. Well, who in Harvard Law isn't? Who in Skull Bones isn't? Who at Cal Berkeley isn't? Who runs the country? Who at Harvard? Who at Oxford? Who at Yale isn't? At Cambridge. They all are. They're all nuclear. It was hijacked, Skull Bones hijacked, pushed the Masons aside, took over. So, he says, the American public has the right to know. They're safe levels, but we're going to be the most transparent on this, and we're going to make sure the American public stays informed. The greatest lie ever told in human history. Who told the greatest truth in human history? I did. You can pull back, you arrogant fuck. You go ahead. I don't give a fuck. Video proof. The day it happened. Arnie Gunderson comes to my site. Chris Busby comes to my site. Helen Kelder comes to my site because I'm calling a full-blown out fucking meltdown for days. Arnie's in his name. I'll give it to him. At least he posts comments in his name. Kevin, you're full of it. This is not a meltdown. This went on for, I have hundreds of emails from Arnie Gundershield that says, Kevin, it is not a meltdown. It's not a hydrogen blast. I got them, dozens and dozens. Same with Chris Busby. Chris Busby in capital letters. Because they're like, oh my God, they underestimated you. Like, this fucking crazy fucker's got the field. He's trumping. He's going to get our cash cow. Because they're not anti-nuclear. Helen's not anti-nuclear. Now, I love Helen. Don't get me wrong. She's done a lot of great work, but she's a propagandist with a publicist. She's a second-hand movie star. That's all she is. When she has this symposium on anti-nuclear, refuses you word Fukushima, oh, I was there the whole time. Sat with Noam Chomsky, sat with freaking Shane Russell, Thomas Ackerman, Baby Wolf, freaking Patrick McCormick. We had more people there than anyone. She blackballs me. Well, Molly, who's her assistant, she didn't blackball me. Helen didn't get up early enough to show up for the second day, so I'm first question up. Busby's not anti-nuclear. They're war profiteers. Now, do they work for the nuclear cartel? I can't prove that, but my guess, yes. Does Jay Collin work for the nuclear? Well, it's who's funding him and through academia. No, the guys, what they do. Ken Buesler? Oh, please, come on. Come on. That's been proven over and over and over who he works for. And they have the right to do whatever they want. Now, more power to them. Here's what I say about all the pro-nuclears, because I ran into a pro-nuclear rat at the Snowden conference, and he started going on arguing, working for the nuclear. Just randomly. I run into these guys all the time, because there's so many of them. It's a cash cow. None of them work. It's free money, Price Anderson, $169 billion in subsidy this year alone. So there's tons of free money when you tap in. And he's arguing with me, telling it takes more carbon footprint for solar. And I said, are you insane? I go off on him. This is the talking point lies they put over and over and over and over. They just lie. Because it's their pocketbook. Jan and Miss Mookie did that great piece on the tobacco industry, how they all lied under oath. Look, you go to Hill, that's the same as courtroom. You can't lie under oath. That's perjury, yet they all did it. The tobacco industry lied over and over and over and over, and no consequences. Because there's shit. And if you don't believe there's two sets of rules and it's a shadow government runs it, think about the Catholic priests. Want them to go to prison? You know how blatant that was? Who runs the show? Putin. Nikolai's great-grandson, $60 billion. He patterned his house. Look up his house. Google his new house. He patterned that for Louis de Vienna. The Queen, the House of Windsor. The same people that always have. In this day and age, they pull it off again. Oh, they pulled it off. So here's the answer. Inside the United States military, because they've grown it so big, they've created their own monster, these royals. These royal elites created because they co-opt the United States, turned the United States into nothing more than their bitch, their military colony. They don't have to have a standing military. Anyway, these royals don't even have to spend one dime on a standing military in England like they did at Waterloo, like they always historically had to. They don't have to. They have the United States. And they've relied on it. And the United States has gotten so big and so obese and so incredible. What happens when the Joint Chief of Staff get together, which it's already happening, and say, you know what, fuck these royals. Let's just fucking invade Canada. We don't even have to drop a bomb. We'll just send a fucking standing, walking army just to march across the border and just take over their banks, take over the Federal Reserve. Let's take over England. Let's smash the central bank of the Rothschilds and all. Let's just smash it with our military might. What's she going to do? What the world's going to do? They ain't going to do nothing. If you think that's crazy and radical, Teddy Roosevelt did it. All it would take is one guy with all this money break ranks, and the American Revolution's on, and Snowden said it over and over. Oh, does that fucker get it? But he's done. I can tell you how he's done. Look, Greenwald, same with him. He's done. Greenwald's a fraud now. Now, he wasn't, but they got to him. He can't give out any information because they got his boyfriend at the airport. When they surrounded the plane, Putin's got him. What's he going to do, give up his life? He can't talk. They're all done, so we need new ones. They're going to come out. They'll come out because the genie's out of the bottle. Right is right, and wrong is wrong. And you go on with your hairspray, and these guys can all get paid, and all their money isn't another minute going to buy because they all die of leukemia too.
All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. All nuclear fighters, all hands on deck, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. They'll be calling you a radical.